in listen-only mode.
Hello, we're ready now to convene the June 8th, 2020 Single Family Design Board. Mary, could you please take roll call?
Yes, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take roll call. We have Chair Miller.
Here.
Vice Chair James.
Here.
Board Member Farrell.
Here.
Board Member Richards.
Here.
Board Member Sweeney.
Here.
And Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
And it appears that Board Member Motisha is absent for now.
Okay, thank you. I would like to move on to public comment. Ellen, is there any member of the public that wants to address the board? If you could please give us instruction.
Absolutely. So again, this is for general public comment for items that are not on the agenda today. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the hand icon and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I do not currently see anyone who's raised their hand, and I'll just ask Ted if we received any written comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written comment regarding items not on the agenda.
All right, thank you. I'd like to move on to the approval of the minutes. Seeing that we did not have a consent meeting last Monday, I believe, there's no record of it, and one was canceled today. There are no minutes for consent, so we will go directly to the minutes for the last Single Family Design Board on May 26th. May I have a motion to approve?
So approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think Jan was first.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna move through the items. We have 736 California Street. We have 440 Northridge Road. Those are the only two items on the minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions?
Actually, pardon my interruption, if we could do a roll call.
Oh, that's right, I keep forgetting.
Sorry, Mary, do you mind getting on and doing a roll call? Sorry, it's easy
Yeah.
for that.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yeah, this is Mary. We have Chair Miller.
Yes?
Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Board Member Farrell.
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
And Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So do we have any announcements or requests for applicants for continuance of withdrawals or future agenda items or appeals?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, just to let you know, I have been monitoring the budget hearings for the city's planning community development department, and also monitoring the Novak report that was submitted to the city council last week.
Yes.
So I would urge all of you to check that on the city's community development website. There were a lot of comments, both by the Novak folks. It turns out we're part of the etc. Boards. So never contacted or talked to, but apparently they did talk to some folks from HLC and from ABR. The grand jury, the County of Santa Barbara, has also submitted a report to City Council, and I think they have 90 days to respond. I'm not quite sure where that is. I'm sure Ted or someone at staff can help if anybody's interested. The item will be back before the budget hearing tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. If you're interested, you can log in to the City Council online website so you can monitor it, either watch it on television or on your computer. So that's just to let you know, I've been kind of keeping an eye on things. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. You really appreciate the time you've been putting into this. I think it's really important that our boards get known and have some kind of feedback with all these meetings and consultants that are being worked with the city government. So I really appreciate your time in that. Thank you. Moving on to item D, subcommittee reports. I don't think we have any unless it's someone speak up. Okay, hearing none, I believe we can go on to our first item, which is 3240 Campanile Drive. We have a representative for this project.
Yes, this is Robert Collins, architect of record.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Since this is a new item, I'm going to read into the record. It's a proposal to demolish an existing 3,599 square foot single-family residence and construct new single-story 2,745 square foot residence, 526 square foot accessory dwelling unit, and a 490 square foot garage. Construct new 810 square foot pool and equipment. Proposed parking includes 2 covered spaces and 1 covered space. Realign and widen driveway to meet fire department requirements. Construct 8-foot wall, fencing along the easterly interior lot line, and 6-foot tall driveway gate. Construct a new outdoor fire pit and outdoor shower. Install 16 detached solar panels, new outdoor barbecue, and various outdoor steps and gravel paths. Construct 6-foot wall maximum, retaining walls, and a 42-inch guardrails. So if you could please go through your project.
And part of my interruption, Mr. Chair, and this is for Mr. Collins to know as well, that we have Samuel Webb, who's also on the call. I'm unable to promote him to a panelist, but if you need me to unmute him or any other members of your applicant team, I understand that they too are attending. So please go ahead. Sorry about the interruption.
Thank you.
Ellen, I'll try and make a clear break when I will invite Sam Webb from Terremoto Landscape Architect to speak, okay? I just want to start by thanking everyone in this forum, allowing us to have this opportunity to introduce our project to the board and to the public. It's unique, obviously, but we're here and we're thankful for it. The project was nicely introduced, the scope of work, by the chair. And the only thing I would note is that the ADU is shown on our plans as reference only from what I understand, separate from the purview of the board. Timmy, you'll have to work with me. I understand that I have to kind of direct you where to go. So if you wouldn't mind, there's another file called 2020-0403 aerial site key and site photos. Could you bring that up? Thank you. So I just want to give some context for the project really quickly. This is an aerial photograph of the project site in the Campanile Hills area. Timmy, you can scroll through quickly and I'll tell you when to stop on a particular slide. So next page, please. Just a view from the street looking east, a view looking west. Continue. This is the neighbor adjacent to the east, 1-story structure. Yep. And then the next one across the street, that's across the street neighbor, the downhill neighbor. Next slide, please. Again, across the street and diagonal from our property, 1-story structure. And just pause on this for a moment. This is the view from our existing driveway to the street. And pause was to make note that the proposed driveway is going to be substantially in the same direction or same location. And I wanted also to kind of give you a perspective that this is about the height of our view from our new structure and the views that would be afforded from the new structure. Next slide, please. So pause on this one. This is a picture of the existing 2-story structure. And of note from this is just taking note that it is an existing 2-story structure, and our new proposed project will be 1-story. It'll be shorter than what's existing there today. I'd also note before we move on that where we're standing right here would again, be substantially the same location. The new driveway would deposit to about the same elevation and location as the existing driveway. Next slide. This is a view to the existing garage. And again, our proposed project has an auto court at the top of the driveway where the driveway flattens out. And again, just noting that it'll be about the same elevation. So we're using as much as possible the existing flat pad and landing area of the existing property. Next slide. Pretty much saying the same thing. So Timmy, you can continue on quickly. A view of the existing structure front, a view to the back, the backyard. I think of note when we look at these is just that the existing topography, although preserved at the top of the site, has sort of been altered and flattened. There's an existing pad there already. Okay, continuing on. A view to the hillside at the back of the sloped lot, a view from the hillside down towards the existing residence, and a view to the two-story house existing. And then I believe lastly, yeah, a view from the second story of the existing house looking out kind of towards, kind of gives a good sense of indicative of what the available views would be, although our structure is lower and one story. So that kind of concludes just an overview of the property and the photo exhibit. If you could kindly, Timmy, move to a file called 2020-0602 SFDB Supplemental Street View. Thank you. So a little bit about our client, Nico and Christina, purchased the property recently, not only because they were interested in the neighborhood, but also because of the obvious physical, beautiful characteristics of the site and the potential that it held. They're community-minded site stewards, strong sustainability advocates, contributors to the arts, and promoters of design and culture. Their project goal, just as we have this image up, was to create a design that meets their programmatic needs, but is also respectful of the existing neighborhood and context, exhibits exceptional quality, while also contributing to the architectural pedigree of the area. This design is a collaborative effort, a teamwork effort between internationally recognized design architects Fair and Hay, as well as ourselves, local architect of record, Modus Design Group, and landscape architects Terramoto. The overriding goals for the project regarding was actually modesty in some respects. The massing, to speak quickly about the massing, bulk, and scale as exhibited by this view from the street, our proposal is modest in scale. It's built into the hillside to reduce the apparent height. It has horizontal roof planes which bridge the natural topography from the bottom of the site to the top of the site. And the strong horizontal lines reinforce that low-lying nature and create kind of a mystery actually from the street view as we view it from here. The internal functions of the floor plan are set back from the roof overhangs, which reduces the apparent mass, and it also promotes privacy and shading. And I think that'll be visible in the next file, Timmy, if you wouldn't mind. Same title, but it's Courtyard View. So a view of the architecture from the courtyard sort of exhibits the goals of the aesthetics of the architecture. The goal was to blend with the natural surroundings, using an organic material palette of wood, concrete, earth tones of painted metals to match the characteristics of the landscape, gravel roofs, stone walls, and boulders. It's all really an extension of the hues present in the existing landscape. Again, the horizontal lines reinforce the low-lying nature of the massing, and the visually permeable facade, which you could see here, is operable, and it dematerializes the form and blends with the landscape. As such, the layering of the building enclosure through the operable windows and screening allows the building to breathe and it provides opportunities for privacy as well as aiding in placemaking. Those are visible screens that you see in the foreground that close and open, allowing the architecture to be controlled. Another design component that's important to the client is sustainability. Obviously, we have our mandatory measures, which we're all proud to achieve, but our client is committed to upgrading the sustainable measures beyond mandatory. We have a building biologist on the team, which is of note, and we're discussing high efficacy air filtration, lowering electromagnetic interference, water filtration, solar beyond mandatory, but worthy of mention. So Timmy, if you wouldn't mind going to the original file that you had up, yeah, our drawing. This is our drawing set, and while viewing the cover sheet, I wanted to note that as a team, we took great consideration for all of the requirements put upon us by the Single Family Design Board, Single Family Residential Design Guidelines, Hillside Guidelines, City of Santa Barbara Municipal Code, Capitol Hills HOA, CC&Rs. And by all rights, we believe proposing a design that's fully by right, and we don't have any modification requests. As I've stated, our goal was to present a modest design that's sympathetic to the Neighborhood Protection Ordinance and does not push the limits in any way as it pertains to zoning envelope or design guidelines. As we stay on the cover sheet here, if you could zoom into the area summary and the, yeah. So again, speaking to the sort of relative modesty of the size of the structure, we've been careful to obviously stay under the 85% threshold as recommended for good neighbor compatibility, but in fact, we're at 70% of the maximum allowable, the structure being 3,491 square feet across two buildings, the main house and the accessory structure. So again, very, very small by comparison to some large two-story projects that I'm sure the board is used to seeing. Timmy, if you could advance to page number 3, site plan, SP 1.0. And if you could zoom in as much as possible to the, yeah. So just sort of giving you the lay of the land, 3 major components to the project, 4 that are kind of visible at this scale. The main residence, which again is substantially in the same location as the existing. The accessory structure, which is the ADU and garage just to the north of that, which is built into the hillside. And then south of all of that is the pool, which is a long rectangular shape between the house and the street, but which is screened through topography and planting. As well of note is the shape and location of the driveway, which is again substantially similar to the location of the existing driveway. I think I want to point out as we look at this as well, you can probably see the dashed lines set back from the property lines. Those are indeed the setbacks, and all of the structures are well within the required setbacks, including the enlarged setback for accessory structures mandated by the HOA CC&Rs. While we're on the site plan, I'll direct your attention to the shaded area between the residence and the pool. That's the open space requirements being fulfilled in what we're calling the meadow, which Sam will talk about when he speaks about the landscape architecture. Fences and hedges, which again will be discussed by Sam, are all by right, no modifications requested, 8 feet at the side yards, 42 inches in the front yard, and a 6-foot-high vehicular gate, which is visible in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and well outside of the 10-foot from property line requirement. Again, while we're looking at the site plan, parking will be accomplished 2 covered parking in the garage structure, literally under the word garage there. And then a 3rd parking spot just to the right of your cursor, which is open air, but which is actually concealed in the front by a sliding gate and will therefore be concealed if viewable at all from the street through the gate and up the topography. There's actually a gate in front of that parking spot. I'll note, and Sam again will talk about it later, but the majority of the site is permeable. We've removed a large extent of the asphalt that you saw in the existing photos, replacing it with permeable gravel, natural landscaping, which I think you'll be impressed by, natural boulders, and not very much impermeable area at all anymore. Before we move on from the site plan, I'll point out in the top right-hand corner, because it was in the description, the solar array is located at the far north portion of the property. You can see that grid of rectangles, yes. And right next to that is the fire pit, aforementioned fire pit, capitalizing on views looking across the rooftop of the existing, or on the proposed garage accessory building. So, Timmy, if you could advance ahead, page 4, please.
So Ellen,
Have you?
hold on. Robert, I have a quick question. Ellen, should I turn off my camera since I'm not speaking?
Only, it's your preference. You're not obligated to have your webcam on now if you would prefer just the applicant to be up. So feel free to turn your webcam off and mute yourself for this time.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
So yeah, just referencing the floor plan, again, I think a comment to some of the characteristics that I introduced earlier about the permeability of the architecture, and again to the modesty. In the foreground there is the main house, which is a 1-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a study in the top left sort of corner of the form, and public functions, kitchen, living room, as well as some service functions in the center of the floor plan. And then to the top right is a little bit of a more detailed look of the accessory structure with, again, housing the parking, 2 covered, and then the 1 open air parking structure beside it. Between the 2 structures is what we're calling a courtyard space with some steps that are raised about 2 feet from the auto court, we're calling, where the cars would be entering the garage. So you're elevating, we're elevating the finished floor of the house 2 feet just to capitalize on some view opportunity. The retaining walls that you see dashed at the top of the courtyard are actually very low, 2 feet high. So by definition, not retaining walls. And the topography above is intentionally preserved as much as possible, but shaped in a way to lower those retaining walls. Timmy, you can advance forward, please. A view of the roof plan, flat roofs with gravel. Next slide. A series of slides that show our elevations, which again, single-story structure hugging the landscape. Next slide. And these look very similar, obviously, and these are scenarios of opening and closing the architecture with the permeable screens. Next slide, please. That's the front elevation, the street. Next slide. I mean courtyard elevation, beg your pardon. So this is an evocative, these 2 slides, pages 9 and 10, are sort of a good snapshot of how, and if you could maybe zoom in actually to me, if you don't mind, to that top graphic. You know, herein shows the low-lying nature of the architecture, the horizontal line, the fact that the accessory structure is built into the hillside and well underneath the height limits. And then you can see to the right there along the north property line is our solar access study. And it's not even an issue there. So views themselves, as well as solar access and building height, very much in compliance. The apparent height, as measured from the bottom of the pool where it meets the ground, to the top of our structure is only 17 feet. So that would be the height of the building. Carrying on, a couple more lateral site sections, again, exhibiting the same characteristics. And I think the final slide is, yeah, just a horizontal section as well. Before I hand it over to Sam to discuss the landscape, I just wanted to also note that we have the support and a letter of approval from the HOA, Campanile Hills HOA. That was a very good process that we enjoyed very much. It was a collaborative process with outreach to the homeowners association, and because of the outreach, it was very straightforward, and we received support and approval without any opposition. So yeah, at that point, I'd like to hand it over to Sam to discuss landscape site design.
This is Ellen Kirkinda. So Sam, it looks like your audio is working. If you don't mind testing it just to see if it works.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Okay. Whenever you're ready, go ahead, please.
Awesome. So yeah, my name's Sam. I'm with Terremoto Landscape Architecture. If you could navigate to page 14 of this PDF. Awesome. So yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Robert was mentioning, our approach is to further nestle the building into the site and make it feel at one with the surrounding landscape. And we believe we've achieved this through the grading techniques, plant material, and also the different aesthetic materials. And so I would like to just, maybe I'll just start and walk through the landscape with everyone, starting with the driveway. So in the driveway, as Robert mentioned, we're copying the same footprint of the existing driveway, but we're grading it out so it's 16% slope so that it doesn't exceed the fire code requirements. And then to get the driveway to that level, we do need some form of retainment. And instead of doing a vertical retaining wall, we like the idea of placing kind of more strategically placed boulders and then planting within them, so it really softens that edge and really doesn't feel like an imposing landscape element. We have a 6-foot tall sliding driveway gate, which is out of the 10-foot setbacks. And then the driveway curves up. On either side, we're proposing coast live oaks to flank the edges so that it kind of shields the house from view of the street and also creates a beautiful avenue to enter the property. At the top of the driveway, we have this auto court and then 4 stairs up into the interior courtyard. In this space, we're proposing a large coast live oak tree to kind of anchor the space there. And you'll notice to the left, there is, we've kind of feathered the grades down just so that the house really does feel embedded in the landscape and not kind of inserted. We have 2-foot tall retaining walls at the back of the courtyard. We tried to keep them as low as we could and to grade up to the hill and then create kind of a landscape buffer zone with a lot of boulders and planting as well. And then towards the front of the house, we have a 81-foot by 10-foot lap pool. And then we have a wildflower meadow that we're proposing an array of native coastal meadow plants. And the idea there is it would kind of soften the linkage between the pool and the architecture. We also have these curving gravel pathways, quite modest and thin. They're only 3 feet wide. They kind of meander through the back of the property, which capitalize on some of the views out to the ocean and also through the beautiful woodlands of the oak trees. And it then kind of curves up to the back of the garage where we have a fire pit. And in terms of screening the property, we do have one hedge along the eastern side, which extends all the way from the property line to property line. In the first 10 feet, it's only 42 inches tall, and then the rest of it would be 8 feet tall. And then we also have vertical cedar fencing along the whole parameter of the eastern, northern, and western sides of the properties. And again, within the first 10 feet, it would only be 42 inches, and then the rest of it would be 8 feet tall. And yeah, that's about it. I'll pass that back to Robert.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And I think just a quick conclusion. I will leave it at that, and I just hope that the board sees it the same way we do. That we've proposed a modest design that's consistent with in appearance, compatibility, architectural materials, and with the requirements of the neighborhood guidelines and the recommendation guidelines set forth by the SFDB. So yeah, that's really all we have to present today, and look forward to some questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Robert. Very nice presentation. Ellen, Ted, did we get any emails or public comment?
So I would just like to ask members of the public who are attending, if you wish to speak on this item, to please raise your hand using the hand icon, and I'll call on you. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. I do not see anyone who's raised their hand. And Ted, if you could just respond to the written public comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's no written public comment regarding this project.
Okay, thank you very much. I will bring back the board for questions. I will go down the roster to see who has any questions. Lisa, James, any questions?
Only one question. The size and color of the gravel for the roof.
I would like to see if Sam could field this, landscape architect. If you don't, Sam, then I could comment.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we're looking at a 3/8 inch angular cool gray color gravel. We don't actually have an exact spec, but we're looking more on the muted gray color range.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's okay.
And Farrell, do you have any questions?
Just one. So I'm looking at the description, and you talked about some 1,294 square feet of grading to be done. Is that primarily the driveway to widen it, or where is that grading going to mostly occur?
Yeah, Timmy, could you please advance to, I guess, let me just give you to page 20, drawing C1. And maybe it's actually page, it's the next page, I beg your pardon. There's a color-coded grading. No, that's not it either. So I guess it was the one beforehand. So page 19. And Jan, oh yeah, page 19, one page ahead of this. There it is. Yeah, so this is a pretty evocative sort of image. The legend sort of describes the deepest cuts and fills, and that's the darker areas, so the oranges and the browns. So you're right, the areas of deepest grading are at the driveway where it curves by necessity for the minimum fire turning radius, as well as where we're digging into the hillside to achieve the low-lying structure built into the side. The rest in the blues and the greens are relatively low, less than 2 feet areas. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thanks, Robert.
Is Joe Matisha here?
I still do not see Mr. Motisha that he's joined, so I think you should go on to the next member.
Okay. Robert Richards, any questions?
Sorry, my system's lagging here. No, I don't have any questions. It's a really impressive presentation and project. So I studied the landscape plans. It looks really nice. So no questions at this time.
Fred Sweeney, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Yeah, I have several. The first one is, I think, probably goes to Ted. This is no action today except for comments. So since they're not requiring, as I understand it, any modifications or et cetera, they could in fact receive project design approval at their next visit. Is that true?
Mr. Sweeney, the project application would need to go through the completeness review process. So if they wanted to submit for the completeness review process to be able to receive project design approval and final approval, then if the board decides that it is appropriate for them to go for project design approval, then the board can state that in the motion.
For today, okay, thank you. Let's see, just starting with a few things. On the decision to use a gravel roof versus a single ply roof and the approach to be sustainable, what was your thinking on that choice? I'm interested.
Again, well, from an aesthetic point of view, it was, we were cognizant of the fact that the client wanted to use the hillside to capitalize on the ocean views. And we didn't want to look across a EPDM or a membrane roof. So it's, you know, consistent with the landscape, we thought a gravel roof would be the nicest view plane to view over. Yeah, I mean, the architectural section will have to include a protective board. It's not meant to be trafficable, so you don't walk out onto either roof. It's purely aesthetic.
And then, did you have any discussion about using a green roof?
We did. In the early stages of the project, we did. There was some concerns about the applicability in a very high fire hazard severity zone and the fire department's view on that. There was differing views on it, and we understood that the fire marshal would have to give a special approval for it. We understood that was a level of, with the client's input, a level of scrutiny there, or that we wanted to avoid. And that kind of went into it a little bit. And also the composite depth of the green roof itself was sort of prohibitive to the look of the architecture, because the fascia was getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. On the existing house itself and all the existing retaining walls, et cetera, based on what you've described, I'm assuming, as we've seen in about 3 or 4 other homes within a very short distance from this site in the last 6 months to a year, you'll notice there's a house being redone just down 2 houses down. All of those homes that were existing, they were all substantially sized, 3,000 above. All of those homes, the house itself, et cetera, were all taken to the landfill. I'm assuming that this house is going to get taken, plus its tenuant retaining walls, et cetera, all that's going to the landfill. Is that how are you doing that?
That's a good question. I hope I don't sound too political, but the answer to the house itself, we have the client is, for removal of the house itself, the client is committed to using Habitat for Humanity and getting in early and doing a demo permit for the house itself, so we could sustainably take care of that and responsibly take care of it. Regarding the retaining walls, existing retaining walls are to be removed. I haven't really contemplated that, except to answer your question, yes, it would be, you know, appropriately disposed of by the contractor.
Okay. And then kind of along those same lines, because I'm thinking about truck trips. Basically, you've demonstrated that the cut and fill is going to occur on the site. But I also noticed there are a lot of boulders, and the way they're depicted is not typically how we see them depicted in Santa Barbara, because most of the times we're looking at projects where there's an excessive amount of sandstone boulders. And that occurs in many locations in Santa Barbara. I don't recall that this particular geological formation of this hillside has a lot of sandstone boulders. So I'm assuming that the boulders being depicted are going to be brought in, or am I misreading that?
Yes, I'll let Sam take this if you don't mind, Sam, but yes, they will be imported. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so our hope is that when we are starting to excavate some of the larger, deeper cuts in the site, that we'll unearth some of these boulders, but the majority of them will be imported. But we are looking at Santa Barbara stone boulders.
Okay, rather than how they're depicted in the renderings. Okay.
Right.
And have you anticipated how many truckloads of boulders will be brought in? Because it's not just a few boulders, it looks like a lot of boulders. So.
Not yet. We don't actually have those numbers yet, but that's a good point.
Okay, and then let's see, on the building itself, on the garage, and I think, Robert, you just mentioned that you are designing the roof so they can't be walked on. But in looking at the site section through the garage and the driveway, or the entry court, drive court, it appears that the finished level of the roof is even with the area where the little fire pit and other areas is almost even. So how are you going to work out making sure nobody decides they want to go stand on the roof?
The strategy for that is a guardrail preventing access to the accessory structure. Yeah, Timmy is outlining it as we speak. So the aforementioned boulders to the left and right of that will be tall enough so as not to be scalable. And then there's a 42-inch high guardrail bridging that and preventing access to the rooftop.
Is that a steel rail, or what's your thinking what that might look like?
Again, Sam, I think it's proposed as a metal handrail with a painted finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then in your project description, you talk about fencing along all the property lines. And I think in your presentation, you mentioned there'll be cedar. Is that a horizontal board pattern or a vertical board pattern? And do you have a picture or photograph what that might look like?
It's proposed to be vertical. I don't believe I have a photo, but we can definitely get you one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Oh, the gate. Do you have a gate proposed? Have you designed that yet, or come up with what it might look like?
Yeah, we have a rudimentary elevation, but the proposal is that it would be steel.
Okay. And do you have lighting down on near that gate for the address or the mailbox or whatever?
Yes, we are showing driveway lights along the driveway.
Okay. And so you don't have an electrical lighting plan just yet, correct? I didn't see one on the drawings, but
no.
I might have. Okay. Because one of the things we'll want to look at is the exterior lighting, both from the that's on the ground, that's usually part of landscaping, but also a lighting pattern that might be in the soffit of the roof for the overhangs, etc. Let's see. And then my last comment is, so I understand, on the horizontal fascia element, that's the part of what I would assume is a parapet on the main house. I believe I read it to be metal. What's the finish on that?
Yeah, we're going to use a plate metal fascia, and it'll be painted finish in a gray color, a natural gray color. Yeah. Okay. The only reason I'm asking is we've seen two other houses very, very similar to this presented to us in just the last 6 months. One on Camino Cielo, just above Foothill, basically the same pattern, same layout, same horizontal parapet element, and one off of Harbor Hills Drive, which is going to have a copper horizontal band. One up on
Stairwell is going to have a Santa Barbara sandstone color mixed with some sandstone at both sides, but it's basically a very low lying, tucked into the hill, just as you proposed. They're absolutely almost identical. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Jonathan Ziegler. Do you have any questions?
I had a couple. How wide does the driveway become? You said it has to be widened for fire rules. How wide is that going to become?
16 feet wide.
Okay. And is a fire hydrant mandated anywhere?
When we started the project, we found the nearest fire hydrant. It's right at the corner. I don't know if this site plan extends far enough, but it's right at the corner of Campanile and Sea Ranch Drive. And we sort of did our poly line and ran it up this proposed driveway and took it to the furthest northernmost or furthest extent of the structure. And we're within 500 feet and within 150 foot hose length. So we think right now that we don't need to have an additional fire hydrant.
Okay. And finally, I don't think I saw what the garage door looked like. Do you have any pictures of that? The garage door?
Okay, it's too bad because we had a rendering of it and we pulled it out. But Timmy, if you could go to page 8, A 3.2. I beg your pardon, it's page 6. Page 6, A 3.0. I am wrong again. Just give me 1 second, please. I am going to have to say that we don't actually have a section or elevation that that accurately or adequately exhibits that, and I don't know why exactly.
Okay.
The verbal description is that as you come up the driveway and arrive at the auto court, that sliding gate. The sliding gate is an aluminum design, painted aluminum. It's visually permeable, and it's a sliding gate, and it's consistent with the screens that Timmy, if you could go to the rendering courtyard view. So it'll be of the same material and look as this metal screening to the left of the facade in this image.
That sounds good. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, so I have 2 questions actually. Well, and Fred brought them up. Well, is that a skylight on the accessory dwelling unit?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go to page 5 of the drawings, A 2.0. Yeah, in fact, this iteration of the plan at the time of submission was showing a large skylight over the center of the ADU form. Subsequent, since this time, we've actually scaled down the size of that skylight. And so there's actually going to be 3 more modestly sized Velux skylights curb mounted now.
Okay. And have you had much thought or, because I've noticed with these types of modern homes with the flat roofs, when you're up on a hill and you see them from high above down, they really stand out. The visual impact of these flat roofs with the surrounding homes up the hill, has there been thought about that? Do you feel, you know, like my concern is it's going to be looking like some kind of asphalt parking lot. Have you thought about that to kind of soften that look, or is that just something I'm off on?
Well, I'm not as concerned for a couple of reasons, just because I think if we look at this specific example and the locations of the upslope houses and the views to our property, they're going to be shielded, first of all, by vegetation as visible from our opening, exhibit with the planting there, as well as the gravel roof. I think is. I get your point that it's sort of when viewed from a distance, it's sort of a monolithic kind of view, but it's something that's not visible necessarily. You can see it on the top left. There's a boulder that's sort of straddling the back of our roof. So we could consider, or would consider, putting not too heavy because of structural, but some, and Sam could tell me I'm off base, but we could put some other interesting elements on the roof that complement the gravel itself, larger boulders.
Well, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just thinking of visual impact. And the other question, and this is something else Fred brought up that I thought about too, is because I can definitely see you're very concerned about the carbon footprint and little minimum environmental impact of, you are taking down a home. So, and you're saying you're contacting the that organization, I can't think of it at the moment, and so probably recycling as much of the demolished structure as possible would probably be consistent with the theme and the desire you want to achieve with this construction project. So anyway, those are my two thoughts. Ted, did you have anything to say? Your screen's up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject here. Just a reminder to the board that accessory dwelling units aren't in the purview of the single family design board. Chair Miller, it seemed like your question had to do more with the overarching kind of design of the project being a flat roof. So
right.
I didn't jump on immediately, but I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Yeah, if it had more, if anything, it had to do with that roof on the other house, but I just wanted to clarify what that square was, that's all. So, so I guess we'll go to comments. So I'm gonna go down the list and ask if you have any comments. So Ms. James, do you have any comments?
Sure. Hey, am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I do. I find the sensitivity to the site and the neighborhood that the project is using to be a big improvement over the existing. I went out and looked at the project, and it really is set very far back off the road, and there is dense foliage in much of the neighborhood. So regarding the view from the roof to the roof, I don't see that as a problem either. The idea about putting additional boulders on the roof, that's interesting. And I have a good familiarity. I have a job site around the corner from that. So I just wanted to comment that the native stone there is nothing like the sandstone. It's that white, very crumbly, I don't know what kind of stone it is. So it won't, I'm not thinking that it would mix well with sandstone. So that is my comment. And I just appreciate the both the landscape plan and the detail with which you both prepared the presentation, and I find this project supportable. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Ms. Farrell, do you have any comments?
Sure, I just can piggyback on what Lisa said, that I find this to be a very exciting project and absolutely
Great, thank you. Robert Richards, any comments?
Yeah, I'm loading up here. Hey, I just wanted to kind of echo the previous two comments that I think this was a great presentation. I feel that the design of this home fits into that area because there's been a few other kind of contemporary homes that have come through the board there that have been approved. I appreciate how minimalist it is in terms of like the floor area ratio and how they're utilizing the site. There's minimal of impervious surfaces, and so overall, I think it's a great project, and we'll be happy to see it move forward and come to be built there. So, thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment about the ADU to follow through on Ted's comment. We as a board have no purview over the ADU, but we do have purview on the hardscape and landscape up to the wall of the ADU. And that's why my question was focused on the garage, because the garage is under our purview. The ADU is not. So just to make that clear. And then finally, because this project is going to go for further review by staff, one of the questions I'll have when it comes back to us, it's my understanding, and Ted, you may need to look into this, that because we have to make hillside design findings, we have to make a determination on the cut and fill as been presented. But also, are we obligated to make findings on the amount of truck trips that move in or off the site, particularly with all these boulders that may have to be brought in? Or is that out of our purview since we're not a planning commission and this project will not go to planning commission? So if you could just check on that before it comes back, that would be most helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, if appropriate, I can comment on that right now.
Okay, thank you.
The number of truck trips is part of the building permit process. So during the building permit process, standard construction conditions are, put in place, and they are, as I understand it, not part of the board's purview.
So not part of our purview, so we don't make comments on that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think the house looks really great, and I really admire them for going to a single story as opposed to a two-story when they could have gone up. And so I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm all for it. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. I have a challenge for the designer based on, again, follow up on Fred's comments about the stones, because I know how strong they're to minimize the carbon footprint. So I'm just wondering if maybe the vehicles that select the stones or bring in the stones are all electric or something, like it's, just a thought. Just to keep on the theme of what you're trying to promote here. Also, I would also say that the visual impact of this project is minimal in terms of how it's compatible with the existing architecture in the neighborhood. And I think it's really important as a board that we look at the overall flow of how this building informs itself with the other buildings. And so I think because of the way it's so set back, and I also feel because of the landscaping, that it's, as the time goes from what I can tell from the landscaping maturing, it should disappear. So I think that was an extraordinary step for the client to do everything in their power to keep this house minimally visually impactful with its surrounding structures. So I think you did a really good job on that, and from my observations. So with that being said, a motion can be made. It's comments only, and as what Fred said, I believe if you feel that it's got adequate information, that we can give it more than just comments. Can I get some clarification on that, please? If the
Chair Miller, yes. So this project is on for a concept review only.
Okay.
It has not gone through the application completeness review yet, so it is not ready at this meeting to receive project design approval. However, if when the motion is made, if the board would like to state that, you know, this project is ready from a design standpoint for project design approval, when it is scheduled next, then that would be appropriate.
Oh, to include that information. Okay, great. Got it. Thank you. So would someone like to draft a motion? Could someone come forward, please?
All right.
All right, Jen, thank you.
So I would like to give this project positive comments with the following suggestions, that we'd like it to come back to the full board, but we would be ready for project design approval at that time, provided we see a complete color palette, pictures of the garage door, pictures of what the entry gate is going to look like, the fencing material, exterior lighting, and taking into consideration that they have contacted the Campanile Homeowners Association and that they are all supportive of this project, makes it much more supportable for us too. So that's my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Lisa won. She got on first. All right, any comments? Okay, I'm going to take a roll. Can we take a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. I want to make one real comment just to support my board, not my board, the board. When making suggestions about the style of the house, try to avoid saying whether you like it or dislike it, but think of it in context of the neighborhood and whether you feel it really is compatible with the neighborhood, that it, you know, something like that, as opposed to constantly saying whether you're voting for it, whether you like it or not, because the primary purview of our board is to make sure that it is compatible with the nature of the already or new neighborhood. So just want to invite that when you make your comments. So with that being said, do we have someone here to represent 1726 Calle Boca del Cañon?
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. So I have Aurelie. Would you try your audio, please? And I just sent you a webcam request.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to, there we go, Aurelie
okay.
Arroyo. And then we also have, I'm Misael Contreras, who is also on the applicant team. Misael, do you mind testing your audio as well? And I just sent you a webcam request.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. And then Aurelie, yes, if you could just move your webcam down. We're kind of looking at quite a bit of your ceiling. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I want to read into the record. This is a new project. It's a proposal for interior remodel and new 450 square foot two-car garage to an existing 1,061 square foot, one-story single unit residence. Project includes new rear deck and patio, removal of as-built patio cover, new standing seam metal roof, new windows and doors. Project will address violations of ENF 2019-00310. The proposed total of 1,682 square feet of development on a 6,730 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 59% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. So this is no final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. So I take it that's comments only. Project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings. Project will require staff hearing officer review of a modification to allow a portion of the proposed two-car garage to be located in the front setback, excuse me. So if you could please show us your project.
Sure. So on the cover page, you'll see it includes the scope of the work, which is the remodel and conversion of a single car garage to habitable space. And the two-car garage is proposed to replace the converted garage, which is what you see in the cover image here on the left. And a private courtyard is to be created adjacent to the garage at the front of the property, which is what the screening is on the right side of this image. If you go to the next page, you'll see the neighborhood is architecturally mixed with mostly modern and Mediterranean style homes. On the left, you'll see various properties along Calle Boca del Cañón. And on the right, you'll use, if you'd like to zoom in on the images of the actual site on the right there, driveway view from the street. So this is the existing, how it stands today. So the garage on the left of the image there, that's the existing garage that's going to be replaced with the new two-car garage. And the fence on the right will be replaced for the courtyard. If you scroll down, you'll see more images of the side and rear of the lot. And you can also see how some of the privacy is has been compromised on some of these exterior areas. If you go to the next page, you'll see we have our stormwater plan showing the site drainage following natural contours of the land. The next page is our site plan. If you'd like to zoom in, you can see the hatched area. The blue hatch is where our interior courtyard will be, and it'll bring the people through an entryway. That's a new covered entryway, which is, you can see here, a keynote KO8, which is surrounded by two koi pond features. If you'd like to go to the next page. This is our demo plan, which you can see the extent of the existing garage that's to be replaced. And most of the hatching that you see that's going on is actually doors and windows being replaced like for like. The roof is going to be replaced for a metal roof. And I think there's quite a bit of interior remodel happening to open up the circulation and flow. If you'd like to go to the next page and the floor plan, you can see it'll be more of a open plan concept with a great room connecting the backyard with bifold doors. And you can see also in this image a more enlarged plan of the front courtyard as well. If you'd like to go to the next page, we have our existing elevations. The south elevation is the street facing elevation, which is at the bottom of the page, bottom right. And just, to point out, this is the facade, the street facing facade that is seen from the public. If you go to the next page, you can see the improvement that is happening at the street level. And so this is where, you'll see the proposed two-car garage with the stone wall surrounding the new garage door. If you will turn to page 10, we have some guardrail details. We're going to have steel cable guard railing, and this is along the back deck area. And if you go to the next page, we have our renderings. While the private residential experience reflects mostly modern sensibilities, the street facade will be more rustic with stone and wood. Renderings 4 through 7 offer various views of the front courtyard. Similar to the front gate, image 9 reflects the proposed addition of perforated steel privacy screen as the neighbor's second-story deck looms over the backyard, as we saw on those site pictures. This screen, along with the as-built patio cover along the back of the house, is largely to address the privacy issue. And the next page would be our landscape plan. So it's mainly focused on creating that more welcoming feel for the new covered entry. And there's also some hardscape that we're proposing there with gravel and the gray pea gravel. That's about 3/8 of an inch. New concrete paving will be sand cast. The color will be natural. And the stone walls that you see will be the Santa Barbara sandstone. And if you turn to the plant palette, you'll see the species of plants that we're proposing, which are mostly drought tolerant, such as the agave and the silver dollar. And if you turn your attention to the color board, I'm not sure if you have that one open. The perforated steel panel image shown on the finishes board is representative of what is proposed at the front pedestrian rolling gate, except that it'll be a unique piece created by the owners, since they're both professional artists, and it'll be a warm gray. And the last comment is that the aluminum patina finish indicated is likely a bit lighter than what we'll end up with exposed structural steel elements. And that's about it, unless Ireli, if you have anything to add.
And Aurelie, you are still muted. You have to unmute yourself. There you go. Now try.
I'm here. Yes, thank you. I just would like to point out on the exterior, the pictures on page 2, that in the neighborhood, we also have similar styles, like contemporary on Calle Boca del Cañón, on 1758 on the upper side of the on the left, and 1755 and 1758. So those are cases below also 1741. So they have similar architecture components of what the owners of the property would like to have in their own home. That's all I'd like to say.
So is that the completion of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we get any emails or public comment, Ellen or Ted?
So thank you. We currently do not have any members of the public attending via webinar. So I can just ask Ted if we received any written comment.
Mr. Chair, there's no written comment for this.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so let's go down the roster for questions. So Ms. James, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I have a couple questions. Are you implementing stormwater basins on, is that what I saw on your site plan? Or was that showing open yard space? I wasn't quite clear.
If you go to the stormwater, yes, on this page, AD are the area drains, and there's a rectangular like planter area that's over on the bottom left on the south end, yeah, where all the area drains are draining out to. And there's also one on the northeast, yeah.
Okay, that answers that question. The koi pond, how do you plan to plumb that? I assume it would be recirculating and you'd have to put a pump somewhere. Have you figured that out?
We haven't gone into the details, but yeah, there'll be a recirculating pump, most likely hidden from view. Yes, be something there.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Farrell, do you have any questions?
I do. So I was curious about, I saw on your color board, you showed a picture of a perforated steel panel at the gate and screens. Can you show me on the plans where that panel is going to be located?
Of course, if you go to page 8 of the plans, and it's keynote, let's see. If you go to the street elevation, the south elevation, sorry, it's keynote K01, perforated steel panel and entry gate, and the other, what was the other one? Sorry, the.
Okay,
It's in the back. It's in the patio.
Oh,
in the patio, in the back. If you go on the floor plan, on page 3, I think it is. On page 3. Okay, so it's in the back. I'm sorry, page 4, the floor plan is then page 4. Yes, thank you. So it's right on the in the back. So you'll see it coming out of this bedroom, the bedroom 1, which is facing the open yard. It's on the west, it's covering the west neighbor view. You can see that west view from the house of the neighbor. If you go to page 2, you will see the neighbor's house on page 2, on the bottom. So it's the
Okay.
east-west neighbor. That's where the other screen will be located at. That right there, in that
So
part.
it's not a gate, it's just going to be a panel that's blocking that?
Correct. Correct. This one is actually a screen. This one is a screen on this side.
Okay.
The gate will have a gate at the entry.
At the front where you're gonna, the garage and the courtyard area, that's gonna be a metal
Correct.
gate? Okay, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's what it is.
Thank you. I just needed some clarification. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Jen. Robert Richard, you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you, though.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Miller. This first question is to staff, and it's a general question. Under COVID-19, are we not going to see the yellow posting of notices on sites? Has that gone away?
Oh,
Mr. Sweeney, yes, due to COVID-19, the office here at 630 Garden is generally closed to the public. We have not been issuing yellow posting signs to my knowledge. That may resume, in the coming months, but for now we are not requiring yellow sign, since it is, difficult for applicants to get down here. And
Okay. And then was this project noticed, or was this not one of the projects that have to be noticed?
Mr. Sweeney, yes, this project was noticed, and it was noticed because it also requires review by the staff hearing officer. That was the trigger. So yes, it did receive a 10-day notice.
Okay, thank you. And then to follow up with either you or the applicant, so the requested modification for a portion of the garage, is it the little corner that I see where I think the setback is? I'm not quite sure. If you could point that out, please.
Yes, it is just the corner of the garage.
So right there, or 5 or 6 feet back in each direction?
Yes. What happens is that it's the 20 setback, the 20 feet. So we're 5 feet 9 inches. So we're requesting that for modification because of the dimension of the garage. So the minimum dimension on the garage, and because we're adding the trash cans inside the garage.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes.
Ted, to you, then that means, are we making that modification request, or is that going to have to go to the staff hearing officer?
Mr. Sweeney, at this point, the single family design board is just commenting on the aesthetic appropriateness of modification. And the staff hearing officer will then use those comments to inform their decision. So
Okay.
This is a concept hearing only. Your comments will inform staff hearing officer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then to the design itself, while we're on that sheet, I was out at the site, and then I only can see what I can see from the street. But on the westerly side of the site, there appears to be an existing retaining wall that's perpendicular to the footprint of the house, kind of midway up. Yeah, right there. So if fire department gets out there and somebody wants to get around that side of the house, are they having to climb up that wall, or what's going on right there?
That wall, you can see the wall on also page 2, is the east neighbor, existing east neighbor. So if you were to come in, that level goes straight. See, that's the wall that you're that you're referring. Okay. Yes, that's the wall. So, but if you go in the front, let's say on east neighbor, also above that picture, on page 2. You will see that level, that retaining wall, goes at the same level. So they will come in that way, and they will need to step or jump on that side unless we do something there.
Okay, and then while we're there looking at that, where we're looking at what's identified as the east neighbor. Currently, there's a concrete retaining wall, then there's a stone wall, and then there's a wood fence. All of that is remains, correct? Okay.
It remains, yes. It's existing.
Okay, and then on the south side, in your rendering, in your elevations, maybe we go to the elevations on the east side or south side, I'm not sure what it is. You show a wood, yeah, there it is. There's a wood fence on the east elevation. It's hard to see in these tiny computer screens. That's a wood fence. Is that existing?
That is existing in the back.
And that's to
on
remain.
The other side. Mm-hmm. That is to remain. We're replacing only.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And then the stone pattern that you're.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's existing. Actually, it's noted in the elevation. It's existing.
Okay, so it's not going. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And on the front, on the street elevation, in your elevations, I guess it's the next sheet down. Yeah, there you go. You show a particular pattern of the stone. You indicated that'll be Santa Barbara sandstone. is that the pattern of the stone, or is the pattern of the stone closer to your rendering? Your perspective rendering that you presented?
It is a perceptive rendering, I believe, yes. Because that's what the, I will need to look at the, I will need to look at the, 1 second, I can go on my screen.
It's what's on the color board, the ashlar.
Color board, yes. That's what it is, the ashlar, yeah.
The ashlar pattern, okay, that's
Yeah,
what
correct.
clear. Okay, and then going back to your front elevation, so I think most of my other questions are there. The garage door is got some horizontal lights in them, and then the rest of it is wood. And I didn't see that on your color board, but assuming that the existing horizontal wood fence at the front of the house right now, which I assume is going to be taken down and replaced by the one you're showing on this elevation, that's going to be a natural stain or a reddish stain or a brown stain. I wasn't quite sure.
If you go to the
It's
color,
going to be, go ahead, sorry.
sorry, I was just going to point out on the color board, there's 2 pages.
Oh, okay, I only saw one page, sorry. Oh, okay, so it'll be that color. Okay, thank you. And then you already answered the question about the trash. And then my last question is on the metal, standing seam metal roof. You could go back to your elevation. Yeah, the way it's rendered, there appears to be a standing seam, looks like 24 inches on center or something to that effect. And then there's a V, what I'm assuming is a V configuration between those 2 seams, or am I reading that wrong?
I believe it's just a graphic of the hatch pattern for the software. If you go back to the finished color board, there's a picture of the sheet metal on the first page.
Okay, so it's going to look like that. So it won't have that line down the middle. Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah.
Mr. Ziegler, do you have any questions? Hello?
I'm sorry, that was my fault. I had Mr. Ziegler muted. So Mr. Ziegler, you should be able to use your audio now.
I can say something, no questions. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yeah, perfect.
All right. I just have one question. What was your thoughts, what your approach was to create this garage door in the front out of stone as opposed to matching the okay, I just got a thing that popped up. Would you like to share
your webcam is off, Chair Miller, if you wouldn't mind. I just sent you a request if you could turn it on. Thank
okay.
you.
Hi.
Hey. There he is.
Push. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to, what your thought was as to why you chose to create the garage in stone as a different material from the existing home. What was your thought process about that?
Aurelia, would you like to?
Yes. So what it is that just to bring warmth into the elevation and some weight, visual weight on the elevation, and the composition with the panel and a mix of contemporary artsy and the stone, existing stone on the side on the neighbor sandstone on that fence. At the fence, the current stone from the driveway. So to blend visually that composition, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And also because it brings, may I show a screen, another interior rendering for the canopy? Yes, so I'm going to point it out here. So once you see it from the inside out, can you see it, okay?
Yeah, you can scooch it up a little. There you go, there you go.
Okay, better. So then that gives you an idea from what you would see from the inside, from the entry door. So it's more like a natural view also.
I see. All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. Now to comments. So I'm going to go down the list again. Lisa, do you have any comments?
Yes.
Okay.
My comment would be that it appears that the number of different materials feels a little busy to me, and especially the ashlar pattern stone right next to the neighbor's existing natural sandstone stacked wall. And my question would sort of piggyback with Brian's comment about choosing such a different facade from the rest of the house. And to me, I'm just not quite sure if all the different finishes marry. So I'll be curious what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Lisa. Jan Farrell, you have any comments?
I do. So a couple of things. First of all, I was out there driving today, and this is a very eclectic neighborhood. I mean, you see all kinds of things. And I support your design proposals. I think you're using really beautiful materials, and including a standing seam roof, I think will be fine in this neighborhood. I agree that there's a lot going on in this house with all the various materials, but I think it's going to be an improvement. I also am in full support of the modification for the garage to encroach into the front yard setback. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Jan. Robert Richards, any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm going to say I agree with Jan that the eclectic nature of this neighborhood and the way that this has been put together, I think it's kind of fun, and I see it fitting in with what's going on around here. To the applicant, it suggests that your renderings would, I think the rendering of the buildings is really helpful. I think fitting the landscape in there a little more accurately would really help sell what you got going on. And I also wanted to comment that I think it's clever how the applicant has fit the solar panels into the garage where they're not visible from the street and they're recessed. I think that's really a great way of accomplishing that. So I have to say I support what is being proposed here, and that's my opinion about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Mr. Sweeney, any comments?
Yes, I would agree with my colleagues. I think given this particular neighborhood and the styles of homes that are on this little short street is perfectly acceptable. This is a neighborhood that has all kinds of materials. I don't think that the material palette is overdone in this particular case. And I think this is a good example of contemporary architecture done in a very sensitive way. Because I think the stone and wood at the front speaks to some of the other homes on the street. So I'm satisfied that it's compatible. I'm a couple of comments of concern that I'll like to see when they return is on the existing chimney element, the smoke arrestor detail, finish, etc. On the rock on the garage, the coping detail and how it interfaces with the actual roof material will be something we'll want to look at. Certainly the light fixtures that are shown on the front for night sky compliance will be important to look at. Perhaps if the clients are artists, they could find a way to take there's artistic screen element that they're going to use at the gate and perhaps incorporate that into the light fixtures in some way that make them a little more unique and more of an artistic statement to the home by the owners. The other thing, though, that I would encourage is to make sure there's no privacy issues between the windows on the, what I refer to as the west side, the house that's on the upper side. So they're not looking down into their living space and they're not looking up into privacy issues. So I hope the two neighbors get that worked out. But all in all, I think this is a very good resolution to neighborhood compatibility and what I would expect to see. The issue of the standing seam metal roof for me is the detailing of the hip joints and the ridge so that they don't get too wide, because if they do at certain times of the day, they're reflective. Although in this situation, the hillside to the upper part of the property, by the time that gets to a point in the day where it could be shining like we've seen in other cases across the city, I don't think that'll occur. This roof only sees sun really on the morning side of the day. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any comments?
Thank you.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jonathan. All right. So my only comments is I really appreciated the what the designer had to say about the stone garage and the thought process for that design choice. I agree with my colleagues. I think it is a very eclectic neighborhood, and the fact that it's only a single-story building visually and the size, bulk, and scale has absolutely minimal effect or impact on the neighborhood. So I can support this project. With that being said, we could move into a motion. Like it said, it's comments only. So who would like to draft a motion?
I would just like to interject. This is Ted Hamilton, SFDB staff. In the motion, please address the modification and the board's support if that is what the board thinks about the modification of that, so that the staff hearing officer can make her decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. So Fred, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I would like to make the following comments: that the board is in adherence to the project moving to the staff hearing officer, is supportive of the small piece of the garage that's in the setback as proposed with the stone finish, that the material and aesthetics is appropriate to the neighborhood, that the project should return to the full board for concept, for project design approval, with the provision that at that time, if it meets with the board approval, the final could be sent to the consent calendar. That the board is amenable to the standing seam rental roof, does not find that out of character and not compatible with the neighborhood. That the board finds that the general approach to the street elevation is acceptable and compatible with the eclectic nature of the neighborhood and the street, both above and below this home. That the board is supportive of the approach to trash enclosures being held within the garage, and that the fence on the front of the house and the artistic screen gate element will be an asset to the home and to the neighborhood, and that the board finds the initial color palette to be acceptable, and the board will be in a position to consider project design approval at its next visit to single family design board. That's my motion.
Thank you, Fred. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Lisa,
Just a moment. I think I had muted Vice Chair James. Vice Chair James, if you could please unmute yourself. It looks like I don't see her connected to audio. Could you test your audio? Let's see. I don't see that you're connected to audio.
Lisa, we can't hear you. Now she froze.
I think maybe if you, Mary, if you want to go through the list and then we'll go back to Miss James and we'll try to troubleshoot.
Okay, so continuing on, we have Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, and Vice Chair James.
Yes.
There you
All right,
go.
thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 3, the last item on our agenda. It's 333 East Mission Street. Again, a new item. If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Brooke Van Dyne with Sherry and Associates Architects.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Did we read the project description on this? I don't think we did.
I was going to do it right now. I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll
great.
Do it. Proposal to
Thank you.
remove the interior garage wall in a legal non-conforming garage, expand the eastern portion of the garage to increase the maneuverability, and raise the garage roof. Project also includes installing new garage doors, a new entry door to the rear of the garage, and a stairway to the rear entry door on the garage. The project site is located on a 6,900 square foot approximate lot in the Mission Area Special Design District. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. A minor zoning exception is requested to allow a 6-inch increase in the height to a portion of the garage roof located in the interior setback. Project requires staff hearing officer review of front and interior setback modifications for additions, alterations to a non-conforming garage. So Ms. Van Dyne, if you could please describe your project for us.
Okay, so what we're looking to do is just make this garage a little bit more functional. It's very old and it's falling apart. We're wanting to keep the garage as similar as it is now. We want to keep the same look. We just need to make it a little bit more functional for modern day vehicles and with maneuverability in and out of the garage. Right now, at this point, one of the garages is inoperable. They can't even use it. It's falling apart. So it just needs to be rebuilt. But because it is in both the front and interior setback, we need to apply for modifications and also for the new stairwell that will lead down to the garage. That is just to give the owners easier access to the garage instead of having to walk down 2 sets of stairs and then go down to the sidewalk, walk around to the front of the garage. This just gives them a little bit more of a direct route to access the garage. So that's pretty much it. Oh, and then there's an unpermitted shed that's in the rear yard that we're just removing.
Okay. Can you scroll down and show us the different aspects of the project?
Do I have control over the page or?
Ms. Van Dyne, Chair Miller, just a reminder, Timmy Bolton is controlling the plans. So Brooke, if you would like to just ask Timmy to scroll to, page 1 or 2 or whatever it is of the plans, we can help you with that.
If you look at sheet T 2.0, that's the second page of the plan set. This gives you an idea of the site plan
Okay.
In the upper left-hand corner of the lot that you're looking at, that is the as-built shed that we're looking to remove. And then in the lower right-hand corner of the lot lines, that's the garage where it is now. We're keeping it in the same place. We're changing the footprint only minimally. We're looking to build out on the east side. Just for more maneuverability in and out of there because of the angle that is on the street, for easier use of the car being able to get in and out. And you can see the path of travel arrows from the front patio down to the garage. Just provides easier access for the owners getting to that garage instead of having to walk all the way around to the front of the sidewalk.
Do you have elevations?
We do, and those are on sheet A 1.0. There we go. And right now, the highest level, they're a little bit uneven right now, is 11 feet 2 inches. We're just looking to raise it a little bit. The height is 8 feet 8 inches, and we're looking to raise both sides of the garage to both be even and to both be 9 feet high. So it's a minimal amount that we're raising it. We don't want to raise it too high, just enough to make it more functional.
Thank you. Do you have a sheet with photographs on it? I believe I saw that earlier.
Yes, I had submitted photo sheets on the 8.5 by 11, so I don't know where they are in your set of plans. It was a separate document, but you guys should have those.
I think I did see it on the link.
There we go. Yes.
So can you please explain these photographs?
Sure. So what you're looking at here is the garage from East Mission Street. And there we go. And that's just right across the street. So like I said, we're looking to keep pretty much the same footprint. On the east side, we are going to build out a little bit there, but we're going to still maintain the integrity of the existing stone wall. And so that's not going to be changed. We know that that's kind of in the historic feel of the neighborhood, and we're looking to keep all of that. We won't be changing the materials of the wall or anything. We're just going to be building out on that east side a little bit.
Okay.
But the main footprint of the garage will stay the same.
Okay. Is there another set of photos below this? Just want to make sure.
So.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the bottom photo showing?
That's just looking directly across the street. We took photos looking up the street, down the street, and directly across the street, so you can see what people are seeing from all vantage points. And there's really nothing across the street that is looking directly at this property or this garage. There's a wall and a very large hedge there, so that's not something that they're seeing anyway.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all the photographs, by the way? Did we see all the photographs? So can you kind of adjacent property, so is that across the street or is that next door? That's next door.
On either side of the property.
Okay, great, great. Okay. And that's looking up and down the street. Okay.
Yes, you're correct. And like I said, we're just wanting to maintain what is already there, just to make it a functional structure, something they can actually put their cars in.
Right. I just wanted to make sure because it's possibly that this is the first time the board sees this. So I just want them to be grounded in what they're looking at. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So
yes. Oh, I was just going to add the stairwell that will be added onto the rear portion of the garage. That won't be visible from the street. It's going to be a stairwell going down to that street level. So it's going to be hidden from view. There won't be anything there that would be an eyesore, if you will. So we're not worried about that. It's just, mostly it's because we're in the front and interior setback with a legal non-conforming garage, and we just want to keep it the way that it is.
Great. Ted, Ellen, was there any emails or community comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's a pretty quiet day on the webinar. I do not have any members of the public currently attending via the webinar. So I just want to ask Ted if there were any written comments.
And Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written public comment for this project.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll bring it back to the board. So I'm just going to go down the line for questions. So Ms. James, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Farrell, any questions?
I do. Can you tell us, Brooke, what's the material that you're going to be using for the garage doors?
The material for the garage doors, we have not decided on yet. We wanted to go to concept review just to make sure that this was a feasible plan. But I can provide that at my next appearance for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Richards, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, though.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the first question is to, just so I'm clear, probably to Ted. So this is going to go to the staff hearing officer, correct?
That's correct. And there's also a minor zoning exception required for the increase in height to the roof.
And are we making that, or is that the staff hearing officer making that?
The minor zoning exception can be reviewed by the design review board in this case.
Okay, and I'm trying to understand. I thought I heard a description of an additional 6 inches to get to the 9 feet. Is the exception requirement because they're going above what the existing garage heights are? Is that what's going on?
Since that left-hand garage, when you're looking at the house, is in the interior setback, it requires a minor zoning exception to increase the height within that setback.
Okay, and if for some reason they wanted to even go higher, that's allowable as long as they get the exception or the modification?
The height can be raised up to 42 inches, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But I should confirm that for you. Yeah, but
Okay,
I think I'm fairly certain that the limit is 42 inches.
Okay, that answers my question because it goes to my next question. I was out walking the site. In fact, I walk here quite often, so I'm very familiar with the site. And there's a couple other garages that are on this street that do the same thing. But one of my concerns is I saw currently they have some fir or redwood raised planters that appear to be on the top of the roof of one of those garages with a good crop of vegetables, so forth and so on. So are you anticipating that the proposed new roof finish will be walkable?
Yes, and the clients had informed us that they had just recently put that out there. When I went out there for the site visit at the onset of this project, that was not there. They contacted us, let us know they had put that out there, and they decided they liked it. They wanted to be able to keep some vegetables or something like that in a raised planter above the garage, and asked if we could, when we get more towards the building department submittal side, if we could get a structural analysis that would allow for the weight to be able to sustain a raised vegetable garden like that. So we told them that that was something that we could incorporate into it if it was something that, design review wouldn't have a problem with them having a raised vegetable garden over that garage.
Okay, so yeah, it's my understanding you're just going to tear the whole existing stuff down and build a brand new. So you're going to construct it to whatever structural requirements, live load, dead load, etc.
Yeah, correct.
So given that, That's why I was asking about the height issue. It seems to me you're probably going to have to put either make a very tall parapet, which might not be a great solution, and I can comment that when we get to comments, but you may have to put something up there so that somebody doesn't fall off that roof. And by code, I'm understanding that may have to be a 42-inch high railing or some method to keep people from falling off. The reason I bring that up, since I was out walking the other day on 2 streets above Roosevelt School, there's a house up there that has this same garage configuration, and there's nothing. You can walk from the sidewalk, which is a public right-of-way, right out onto the garage and then fall over. So,
and that's how this one was when I went out there for the initial site visit, and we walked on top to get some dimensions, and it made me nervous because they were talking about how dilapidated it was, and I didn't want to stand on top.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to confirm, looking at the plan, it appears you're not touching the rock wall on the property line at the street, at the sidewalk. And so this is a question to Ted. Ted, does that need any technical review by Nicole Hernandez to make sure that they're okay, that that's not an historic wall or it doesn't get touched or they have to protect it or whatever? That may be just something you'll do in the review as it moves forward.
Mr. Sweeney, could you please indicate to Timmy where we can see the wall on the plans, just to be?
You can see it, right there, Timmy. You've got your, move down to the V shape as it hits the wall or hits the new garage. Right in there, based on what's been described, there should be no touching that wall that runs along the property line all the way up to the set of steps. We understand, we know this board has looked at other homes on this street because all of those stone walls have been designated or potentially designated as historic structures. So it's just important that the applicant know what they're supposed to do so they don't get caught up in some problem later on as they get the building department. So that's the only reason I bring it up. The other question I have is down at the detail. I know this is just concept, but one of the things I noticed that was rather an important element of the existing garage is the existing roof overhangs just a smidgen over the existing doors and walls, and it gives it a shadow line. But more importantly, I think it will give a water intrusion protection over the garage doors. I didn't see that in the design being proposed. If you could go to the elevation, the door elevation. Yeah, and Timmy, if you could focus down on the bottom right, the proposed garage elevation. Yeah, there is. There appears to be a kind of like a 12-inch fake element. What was your thinking there? Is that stucco or is that a little stucco configuration?
It is stucco, and we can design it. We're not showing a roof overhang. That shadowing is mostly just to show the elevation between the front and back. We can do it without a roof overhang. We weren't.
Yeah, no, I'm not proposing. In fact, I'm proposing just the opposite, that it should have a shadow line, because that's what's on the existing garages, which I think are an attribute to the style of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And the garage doors perhaps want to be more incompatible with the historic wood siding of the, not historic, but the wood siding of the home itself. That it picks up on that detailing, and that might be a good approach since you haven't made a final decision on the garage doors themselves. And that also the detailing at that parapet element, along with whatever railing or barricade that you might have to have for people walking in that roof, might formulate a compatible design that matches the home. The only other question I have is, there's it looks to be like a new wood post sticking up in the air on the back of the garage, the garage part that's on the right. If you walk out to the site now, there's a new vertical post. I wasn't quite sure what that was for. Maybe it's a lamp that they want to put in or something. So that gets to my last question, which you probably haven't decided on yet. Will you have any minimal lighting or lighting coming in at the garage or even down the steps that come into the back? And I'm sure you haven't got there yet, but that's something I'll be
Right. Yeah. No, we hadn't planned on the lighting yet, but we would want lighting definitely on the stairway at the rear of the garage. And then for the front of the garage, we might be able to do some sort of lantern or exterior light on the front of the garage. If that's something that the design board would like to see there, we can definitely incorporate that into our plans.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Fred.
Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokenda. If I may just add on to Mr. Sweeney's question about the stone wall. As part of the completeness process, this project should be routed to Nicole Hernandez, the urban historian, just to have her weigh in and comment if there's any concern, and that would be part of the environmental review that happens after completeness. And I can also guarantee you that the staff hearing officer will ask the applicant questions related to that to make sure that that there's no issue or impact. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ziegler, do you have any questions?
Fred
Hello?
asked my question, so I am clear. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Now going to, I have no questions at this time either. So now we will go into comments. Lisa, do you have any comments?
I have no comments other than I think that the proposal is acceptable, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Jan Farrell, do you have any comments?
I just think that it's definitely a necessity to get this garage doors fixed up here. And we would like to see what the materials are going to be used for the actual garage doors and any exterior lighting that you're going to have. So that's it. Very, very supportive.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richards, any comments?
I'll just say that I support what's being proposed. It seems like it needs to happen for this home. There's a few details like Fred was bringing up and the interest of them to put some type of raised beds on the roof. So I'd like to see some more details of that. I mean, it could be kind of fun and neat. So let's maybe look forward to seeing that in the future. But I suppose I support rather what is being proposed at this. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Mr. Sweeney, any comments?
Yeah, comments, and then one question to Ted. Did this project go before consent calendar for any reason? Did I misconstrue that? Was it on consent at some point?
Mr. Sweeney, not to my knowledge. Let me do a quick check here. I don't see any recent single-family design board applications for this project. I believe it did go in front, well, actually it just went for a modification pre-consultation with staff, but that was not a formal public hearing.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, my comment is I think this project is small enough and acceptable enough that if it comes back, it probably could travel to consent, but what I don't know, and Ted would be able to clarify whether the whole board has to act on the modification request or not, that may require the whole board. The other comment is I think that the solution, before it goes to the staff hearing officer, I think the applicant needs to resolve the issue of whether or not they're going to need a railing around that roof. And I would hope that they approach it with a combination of a fascia element or parapet element that provides a shadow and some protection over the door openings, the garage door openings, and that if they do propose a railing system, certainly not glass, that the railing system be porous, perhaps wood, perhaps metal. You might want to look at, there's two solutions that someone came up with up on Emerson Drive, which is just the road on the other side of Roosevelt School. There's one that didn't come up with a real great solution. They put up a kind of steel portable gate thing, but the one right next to it has a similar garage to what you're proposing here. And they came up with what I thought was a fairly attractive railing system, because I think they have the same problem up there. So you next time you're out, you might want to drive up on Emerson and just take a look at those two solutions. So I think that kind of needs to get resolved before you go to the staff hearing officer. And that's why I'm thinking if you need to come back to consent, that might shorten your whole process considerably in terms of time, and without a lot of a big concern by a whole lot of folks. So I think this is solvable. Certainly the wood garage doors that can emulate the bungalow style, nature, craftsman style. It's not really craftsman style of the existing home is an appropriate approach. And certainly I think the use of the roof for outdoor raised planters and gardens is perfectly acceptable for this neighborhood. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any comments?
It's a no-brainer project. I think it should go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have no comments either. So with that, would someone like to entertain a motion?
Chair Miller, if I may interject here.
Yes.
Excuse me, I just wanted to clarify process, try to address Mr. Sweeney's question. So as far as the staff hearing officer approval goes, currently in this motion, just, say that modification is, appropriate for the neighborhood, and the staff hearing officer will review that and use it in her determination, or in their determination. And so at that point, if the land use approval is granted, then the project can go back to design review for project design approval. So the board now can say, the project should be continued to staff hearing officer, and then consent, SFDB consent if approved. That would be something that is possible.
Thank you. So Lisa, looks like you'd like to.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will attempt that. The board would like to give this project positive comments regarding the application to raise the ceiling height of the garage to 9 feet to make it more functional for cars. Would also like to approve the build out to the east section of the garage, and that this project will be continued on to the staff hearing officer for approval of the modification to allow the portion of garage in the interior setback. And at that point, if the staff hearing officer approves it, it can come back to the board for project design approval. We would like to suggest that a solution to the roof railing be brought to us, either in the form of a fascia or a railing, and provide detail of the proposed garage door, and possibly make an overhang to keep the water out of the new garages. That is my proposal.
Just a clarification, sorry, real quick. Did you mention that we support the setback modification? Don't we need to have that kind of verbiage that the board supports it?
I think I did mention that, but if I didn't, the board
Yes.
supports the setback modification for the garage and for the stairs.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jack.
And we appreciate the removal of the shed in the rear.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, yes, Fred?
I'm willing to give it a second, but I want to give a clarification before I give it a second.
Sure.
I think your verbiage, Lisa, rather than a 9-foot ceiling, I think it should be a 9-foot roof height.
Thank you.
To be correct. And that, are you intending for it to come back to consent when it returns or to the full board?
To consent,
Okay. With that, I will second the motion.
Thank you. Ted, did you have a comment?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Sweeney addressed most of my comment. I did want to just mention that the minor zoning exception can be reviewed when the project returns to consent for project design approval.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I don't think that was mentioned in the motion, but we can.
Okay. I think that's it. So I move now for a roll call, please.
Thank you. This is Mary. I will take roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. That being the last item on our agenda, I believe I shall conclude the Single Family Design Board for June 8th, 2020. Thank you very much.